there's been a lot going on in the last month or so. There are a lot, or at least a few new star duos in the Western Conference. And I did want to discuss some of the star duos in the Western Conference. And, if we're going to do that, and it's going to be my show, we're going to have to start in my backyard. I mean, let's be honest. The Mavericks have long been searching for that co-star to go alongside Luka Doncic. Hey, did you see Jalen Brunson had 40 for the Knicks last night? And they went out. They went out and pulled off a blockbuster deal for Kyrie Irving. So far, mixed results. Listen, I'm not going to sweat the fact that they lost at the in the final seconds to the Kings and to the Wolves in the first two games with Kyrie and Luka. As far as the offense goes, who's gonna get the ball down the stretch, like they're gonna figure that out. And frankly, they've lit it up offensively. They just haven't been able to finish these games. If we're judging this duo based on, hey, do the Mavericks have a chance to win a championship? I think that we're going to have to address their defensive concerns. And then if we're judging this duo based on, what is ultimately the ceiling, we're going to have to discuss whether this has staying power.
Right.
I mean, Kyrie doesn't have to answer those questions. He frankly, he has. His answer to the question is, hey, no rush. No need to worry about that. I want to focus on right now, and we'll worry about the future this summer, which is a perfectly acceptable and reasonable answer. It's not like the Mavericks are saying, we want to commit. This is a test drive for both sides. But when you're evaluating this duo in terms of the ceiling, that's part of the conversation.
Yeah, and I watched that first game, the end of that first game. I guess it was the fourth quarter and overtime of the Sacramento game. I kind of caught a little bit of what happened against Minnesota. It still feels like, as is the case most times when you have new duos, new guys trying to play off each other, you kind of want to make the other guy happy at first. All right, I'm going to defer maybe a little bit more than probably I should right away if I'm Luka. Kyrie's like, oh, no, it's your team. This is you're what's supposed to do. I think they're starting to figure that out. We saw it a little bit in Sacramento. Obviously, we saw it again against Minnesota. But again, like you said, offensively, they're going to be fine. Just on those two talents alone, if they just hog the ball from each other, they'll still be fine on offense because
they can play take your turn type of offense and still be elite.
So obviously you mentioned the defensive concerns. It would be nice to have a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith. You try to figure out where that's going to come from now. But as far as scoring and offensively, it's very hard to match a duo, against those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, they might be the best offensive duo in the league. We're going to talk about pretty soon here one or two that are also in that conversation.
Right.
As far as the finishes to the game, Luka admitted after the loss in Sacramento, hey, I should have gotten Kai the ball back. Right. Luka settled for a tough step back. And look, the guy's made a lot of tough step backs in his career, a lot of clutch tough step backs in his career, but he was gassed. It was his first game back after missing more than a week. He hadn't scored since late in the third quarter. Kyrie was cooking, and he admitted, hey, I should have gotten Kai the ball back. We should have gotten Kai a shot there. And then, he admitted that they probably overthought it last night against the Timberwolves. Also, Luka gave credit to the Wolves defense, and specifically, these guys aren't going to come up in the best duos in the West, but Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels. By the way, Anthony Edwards, whoo, boy, he is becoming one hell of a player.
He has had
both ends of the floor.
Well, the Pelicans have not had quite the 2023 so far. Ant has definitely had quite the 2023 so far.
Yeah, and look, they wanted to run a little dribble handoff. Luka gets the ball or handoff to Kyrie, either get a three or a quick two there. McDaniels, with I don't know what his wingspan is, but it's you measure it in miles and not inches. But he deflected the pass. It's a broken play. Their spacing got jacked up. Anthony Edwards and McDaniels, like it's not like either one of them passed up a clean look.
Right.
And then, they cough it up. Again, those things happen. But the concern for the Mavericks is, dude, you fell down by 26 points in that game. The Wolves for the first 3 quarters essentially scored at will. You didn't have an answer for Anthony Edwards. You went small and got Gobert out of there. But before that, Gobert was beasting all over you. The bit of good news, the bit of hope, optimism that I can give you as far as the Mavericks defense goes is that Maxi Kleber expects to be able to play coming out of the All-Star break. He had a torn right hamstring. Despite my 8 years in college, I don't have a medical degree. So how the hell he came back so quickly from that? I don't know if it exists. I guess, partial tear this, that. But
hamstrings are tricky, man. They can be.
Well, ask Zion. And, it's a big old hamstring. But Maxi Kleber underwent surgery, is ready to come back after the All-Star break. He is absolutely the best defender on the roster right now, kind of the switchable 5, glue. It was so important to them during the playoffs last year. It's going to be that important to them for the rest of the season and the playoffs this year. Having said all that, dude, especially coming back off injury, you can't run his minutes up. You want him to finish games. He certainly can't start and finish. Your minutes are getting too high there. But and J Kidd jokes, hey, we're just trying to outscore people. But they understand you're gonna have to mix some stops in to have any real hope of making a run in the Western Conference.
Yeah, going back to, like you said, down 26, to be able to even put yourself in a position to have a chance shows you how good that offense is, and it shows you were getting some stops. Like you were starting to string some things together. But as the defense improves, this is a scary team to look out for because of those two. When Christian Wood is hitting, that's another option that you have to account for offensively. Not exactly where you want to, depend on him defensively. You want to have Maxi in there for that much.
And not sure how much he'll play in the playoffs because of those defensive concerns, and frankly, because of trust concerns for Jason Kidd.
Right. And that's been a year-long thing that you have covered very well so far. But I think Maxi coming back obviously gives them, it doesn't give them that perimeter guy that they had in Dorian, but it does give you somebody to help him pick a role, somebody who can still maintain out there just for a little bit, show, help, and give you something more that should be able to help the defense as a whole. But offensively, these guys are just, I know J Kidd jokes about it, but if you just put up 125 a night, that should probably get you a couple dubs, right?
He said in Salt Lake City, the day that the trade was officially announced, he said basically they're going to score 130 or 140 and see if people can keep up. Now, they haven't quite gotten to 130 or 140, but they've gotten close. And that's with Luka and Kyrie kind of, it's still a feeling out process, really, especially for Luka. Kyrie has played with superstars. Like Luka's a different player than LeBron, but there's a lot of similar. I think the biggest difference is, LeBron's ability to play off the ball and to be, like you're not throwing lobs to Luka. You're not, right. Luka's not going to get out on the break and throw down tomahawks. So that's the biggest difference there. But in terms of a ball dominant, big playmaking point forward, supersized point guard, whatever you want to call it, certainly very similar there. Kyrie's played with Kevin Durant. Jason Tatum was young when he played with him. But the point is, like, Kyrie can play on the ball. He can play off the ball. Like, he can do everything you can imagine out of a 6'2" guard offensively. And then the biggest thing with Kyrie is not even so much, hey, given Luka that that guy to play alongside of, certainly that's critical. But the Mavericks were running at a league worst offensive efficiency in the non-Luka minutes, right? Yeah. That ain't the case anymore. Super small sample size, 58 minutes, but it's a 127 or I'm sorry, 126.3 offensive rating.
That is
When,
pretty
I'm sorry,
good.
it's a bigger sample. I'm reading the wrong thing. Kyrie, because he did have two full games without Luka, so 96 minutes, still small sample size, but not tiny.
Right.
126.3 offensive rating with Kyrie on the floor and Luka off. And look, we saw it in the fourth quarter last night. Oh my God. I mean, one of the most spectacular offensive stretches I've seen in my life. Like I was there the night that Dirk had 29 in the fourth quarter and a comeback win over the Jazz. That's the highest scoring quarter in Mavericks history. Luka had a 28-point quarter. Kyrie had 26 in the fourth quarter last night, the highest scoring quarter of his career. And a bunch of that was Luka's going to rest, and this is the luxury of having Kyrie. Luka can actually rest the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter again. And you're not worried about, oh my God, are we going to score any points? And dude, this guy, he had Lopez, he was cooking. And then he got the ball in transition, weaving in and out of traffic, pull up three. Oh my Lord. Oh my God.
Our friend Timmy Goodtimes in his MVP straw poll, I was almost ready to put Luka number one just because of the game that you and I saw a couple weeks ago where Luka hurt the heel and the Mavs were up 31.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, the Pelicans had a chance to win or tie that game if they, if an inbound call goes the right way. And that was just what? That was mid-third when he left, maybe early third.
Mid-third when he left. Yeah, mid-third when he left. And again, you just saw Spencer Dinwiddie was he was a great sixth man for the Mavs last year. He actually played pretty well alongside Luka this year, but just when Luka wasn't on the floor, they couldn't generate offense. Right. It's crazy. They're 3-0 games Luka missed since the trade. That somehow includes a game that Kyrie wasn't there for either. But before that, they were 0-7, and they just couldn't generate offense. And again, no longer is that a concern whatsoever.
Not at all. And that's why you make a swing like this. Especially at the price that it cost you. I mean, obviously, we've covered on many podcasts of what you get when you bring Kyrie into town, but on the court, that addresses the biggest issue that you had if you were the Dallas Mavericks, which was how do you score in the non-Luka minutes? That is, as you said, no longer a problem for Dallas. And like I said, just score 125 a night, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and as far as why you make this trade, the other reason is because Luka really wanted you to make it, right? It's like, hey, he's been saying, we got to get better. We got to get better. We got to upgrade. The guy's playing at the MVP level. The Mavericks were floating around 500 and they didn't have a shot. They didn't have a chance to make a run this year. They lost their second best player for nothing. And it was a significant step back. And so I just don't think you could have looked Luka in the eye if you're Mark Cuban and Nico Harrison and said, hey, we had a chance to get this guy who's a perennial all NBA caliber player. And we just decided, you know what, we should be patient. We should wait until the summer when, not sure exactly who, but hopefully, maybe, possibly we can strike this summer. And Luka's like, hopefully, maybe, possibly, we had a chance to get this dude now. So you couldn't have that conversation. Plus, Jay Kidd was pounding the table for this to happen. Now, Nico last night said he doesn't see the risk. Forget. Let's just live in an alternative reality where Kyrie doesn't have a track record of off-court, controversy. Like, wipe that out. This is a massive risk simply because of his contractual status.
Yes. Right.
And you make this deal. Again, test drive for both sides, understanding, look, we're not going to discuss an extension. Kyrie's not settling for a 2-year extension. The one thing after this trade request that was made very clear, there is a big time market still for Kyrie Irving. It was a competitive market to trade for him. It will be a competitive market to sign him, or if you're the Mavericks to re-sign him this summer. And they made that understanding. It's here's the gamble and here's the fallback plan. The fallback plan is they'd have significant cap space, not max, but with tinkering, with unloading, financial maneuvering, they could get to a max type slot. They would have his bird rights, perhaps if he decides to go to Phoenix, maybe even the Lakers. Those bird rights could be of significant value. But look, you don't make a deal like this just assuming it's going to be a rental. Obviously, plan A is it works out, and this is a duo that's just going to be in Dallas for years to come. But again, that's a summer conversation, and I think Kyrie's taking the right approach, saying, "Don't ask me about it. I've given you my answer. My answer is let's focus on now, and we'll worry about the future when that time comes." I think that I truly believe he doesn't know exactly what's going to happen this summer because the guy's living in a hotel in Dallas that he just checked into,
The other thing about why you go ahead and make this trade right now this is as wide open as I feel the West has been in some time. You look at the standings as of today, 4th and 12th are still just separated by 3 games.
Yeah.
That was kind of the good thing about the Pels injury when Zion's okay, he's going to miss some more time. You were a game and a half back from being 4th. You were a game and a half back of going all the way down. So the fact that you were in a situation where there's just you could do whatever you want. You can get up to home court, you could be in it. So if you can make that jump and go for it, even if it is a rental, I know you don't want it to be. I know you want obviously the long term there, but it's a heck of a year to try to make a push when you got all this room. And by the way, that 4 through 12 doesn't even include the Lakers, who just made a bunch of moves, who are sitting back 2 games behind 12 at 13 right now.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.